right, hello and welcome to 3 OGs from the League. I'm your moderator, Ashley Stroehlein, of course, hanging out with my co-host, Muggsy Bogues and Earl Cureton. Charles Oakley going to join us momentarily. Guys, how's it going this week?
We're doing
Great.
pretty good.
Real
Doing
good. Yeah.
I'm feeling good.
Well, it's a
All
little
right.
cold. It's a little cold up here in Detroit, though. I don't know. We down in the 20s. It's snowing. It's a little chilly here, but I'm handling it.
Well, I mean, Ash, we here in Charlotte. I mean, even though it's a little raining and a little crisp outside, but we take these type of fall seasons or winter seasons.
I'll take it over what's going on in Detroit. That's for sure.
No question. 'Cause we got it
Absolutely.
coming down right now.
Do not
Well,
have no shovel.
right. Well, we always like to start things off with hot topics. Obviously, now we're finally seeing some action back on the court. The NBA preseason is going on. With what you've seen so far, what are some highlights that stand out to you?
Well, for me, I was kind of waiting, of course, to see what the rookies was going to do, especially the top three picks, but then also how Kevin Durant and Steph and them guys was going to get on the court and how they was going to move and kind of mesh together, because a lot of movement has been taking place during this season. A lot of rumors about James Harden, how he was going to fit in with John Wall. So it was a lot of things that's going on that I was kind of keeping my eye out on.
Yeah, I peeped in on a couple preseason games already right now, and that Miami team, they haven't missed a beat. Tyler Hero looks like he's the real truth. He's shooting the ball extremely well. Seen a little bit of the Lakers. Horton's playing really well for them right now. Guy that they had last year didn't get a lot of playing time. That Philadelphia team, they played Boston, and Dwight Howard's made his transformation from LA to Philadelphia, and he's fitting right in with those guys. They're going to be interesting this year with some of the new people that they added to their roster. So it's a few teams to look out. Everybody's going to be looking at Kyrie and Durant, in the East. That makes it real interesting. But and all the rookies that's coming in. Of course, you guys got Ball, down in Charlotte right now, and saw him throw a couple of sweet dimes. Get assists and rebounds and didn't score a lot of points, but it looks like he's going to be an exciting player for that team. And it's early, and these guys didn't get a summer. They didn't get a chance to play together. They didn't get an opportunity to do a whole lot. So it's a different type of preseason this year because these guys have only been together for a short period of time. I went to Detroit's game, and they got 10 brand new players to go along with Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose. And right now they're just trying to find their way. It was 2 games they had, something like a bubble where they brought New York into town for the whole weekend, and they played them twice. They lost the first one and came back and beat New York. And both of those teams are in similar situations. So it's going to be exciting, though. You got some good teams come in with new players, and it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, I've been fortunate. I've been able to go to Spectrum Center here in Charlotte for the first 2 preseason games. So I'm lucky with my other job that I get a media credential, and so I got a front row seat to Ball being a part of the team. You mentioned his passing is just so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Got to work on the shot a little bit, but we'll take some excitement here in Charlotte. But pretty good for the first 2 preseason games.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of keeping my eye out on, just to see, like you said, the rookies. How Edwards going to do with Minnesota, how Wiseman's going to pan out with Golden State, and of course with Melo here in Charlotte. And then, as you alluded to, Ashley has some highlight passes, and that's something that I think he feels very comfortable doing, passing the basketball. I think that other part of the game will come. And I think it will bring a lot of excitement to this city and to that arena. And of course, and with the addition with Gordon Hayward and the excitement with the other players. So I think Charlotte is really pleased with what they got thus far. But around the league, I think it's going to be exciting. Of course, the reigning champs and LeBron James and the Lakers re-signing. And of course, with all the other off signings that just took place, I'm quite sure we're going to get into a little early.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Lakers, of course. A headline that's been coming out so far with preseason talk, Talen Horton-Tucker averaging 27 points per game, 50% shooting. Obviously, he spent a lot of time in the G League last year, but just your thoughts on what he's doing right now. I know it's just preseason, but seeing him kind of get an opportunity to shine.
Well, it's an opportunity for the coaches to take a really good look at him. They couldn't do it, obviously, last year in the bubble. They didn't want a chance doing that, but they knew when he played well, and they saw what he was doing in the G League. So now, during the preseason, they got a chance to really take a real good look. I think he's up around 23 points a game right now. So he's showing that he definitely can play. So that's just another piece that they got to look at. That Lakers team is obviously going to be the team that everybody's looking to get it done again this year. So, but he'll be a piece that they'll look and they always can use the extra help.
And then contracts do come into play as well. When you got guaranteed contracts, it's kind of hard to kind of put a guy out there in Florida, but he's been playing excellent basketball. He's trying to let them know that he is just as talented as any one of those guys that's sitting along the side of him. And if he continue to showcase the type of talent he's been displaying on these last two preseason games, I mean, it's going to be warranting some playing time for him because he fit the mold. I mean, he's very talented. He can score the basketball. He's young. He's energetic. And, of course, he's going to be fighting some time with Schroeder down there at that point position.
All right, next hot topic. We talked about this player a lot earlier in one of our other sessions, but we talked about Paul George. Since then, the Clippers have offered him a max deal, 4 years, $190 million. Your thoughts on them believing in him this much and giving him that deal?
Well, I mean, I know a lot of folks was kind of giving Paul a lot of grief, especially during the series down in the bubble. Game 7 against Denver, losing a 3-1 lead against those guys, and for him to be the Robin to consider Batman and Kawhi Leonard and not performing to his level, it was kind of, is they really serious about giving him that money? But a player like Paul George, you got to invest in him. Two-way player, an all-star, brings it night in and night out. I mean, we all have our moments, but they could not afford to lose out on a player such as Paul George. So I'm quite sure that they looked over it very seriously and came to the right conclusion and giving him the max deal.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a little while to put teams together. They didn't have the success that everybody expected, but that was a process that they went through to bring him there. Him and Kawhi Leonard really wanted to come back home. They're back in LA. Those two know each other and play well together. And just because things didn't work exactly the way they wanted to do last year, it's possible that they can make it happen this year. So, like Muggs says, you can't afford to let a guy like that go. That's a 1-2 punch in the league. He's a proven player. He's earned the right to be in a position to get that type of money. And now that they gave it to him, he has to live up to it right now. So you're going to, you'll watch him and see what happens this year. And, I wouldn't judge everything on 1 year, that team coming together, and, the coaches are gone, Ty Lue's there now, and they got some new pieces, and we'll see how it works going forward, because they have two great players, on the same team. And that's what teams are trying to do, to get those two guys. It took a lot to bring them into that team. So it'll be interesting to see how they go forward.
Well, and speaking of two guys paired up together, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, finally back on the court this season. They're getting a lot of hype in the Eastern Conference. Just your thoughts on, do they deserve the hype, and how do you think this season is going to go for them?
Oh, well-deservedly. It's well-deservedly so for them to be getting that type of hype because of who they are. Kevin Durant, 3-time champion. I mean, all-star, considered one of the best scorers in the world. And here it is, Kyrie, one of the most entertaining players that you can ever have on the basketball floor. And with his, pedigree, and both of theirs, I should say pedigree, and now having the opportunity to come together, being able to win elsewhere and coming together to form as a unit and trying to collectively bring on the championship to Brooklyn, that's going to be interesting, because we all say is only one basketball, and how many opportunities, we're going to be able to share that ball. And then they talking about possibly bringing in a guy like James Harden. So who knows what that may turn out to be. But I think it's a good situation that Steve Nash loved to have, having two all-stars and Durant and Kyrie Irving.
No, it's no doubt. The whole world is waiting for Durant to step back on the court. We know what type of player he is, MVP caliber. He's got it done. Kyrie, performances with LeBron, and he's bringing a lot of off-court drama right now, but that's what Kyrie's been about over the past few years. He had things going on in Boston. He had things going on, and he always say some things that I put it out there. But when it comes time to get on the court and put up those numbers, he's been successful at doing that. So they're definitely going to be the team to watch in the East, with those caliber of players on that team. And not only that, the players that surround them. I mean, it wasn't like Brooklyn was a bad team, with the Dinwiddies and those type of guys they got on that team. They got some good LeVert. They got some good players on that team. So mashing it all together, they're definitely going to be a team that you got to look at in the East.
That's true.
All right. So continuing the decision made in the Orlando bubble, the NBA announced they will not drug test for marijuana this season. Thoughts on this? And do you think the use of marijuana can actually affect a player's performance or not?
Well, marijuana is like alcohol now. I mean, they legalized it. You can ask, does alcohol, affect the player's performance? I think, it's just going to be the way that they do it. I don't think they should be playing basketball high. obviously. So, I mean, that's, that's a given right there. But yeah, I mean, it's legalized, and there's no reason you don't test for alcohol. So I don't think now that you should be testing for marijuana now that they've made it legal. So that's something to watch. I'm sure players that have to be responsible and know what they can do if they are indulging in those type of activities. They got to be professional first and take care of themselves first. And we all know that's what it's all about. So hopefully that's what those guys will do. I mean, I'm sure under the influence of anything, it's going to be difficult for you to go out and perform. So you're supposed to go out there, ready to go with everything working properly before you step out on the basketball court.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge for the NBA. When you give players that type of leeway, hopefully they can be responsible enough. And of course, now, and which Earl just alluded to, marijuana has become legal, especially medical wise. And a lot of players in, all sports has really been trying to wean themselves off of these medications, these pills that they've been getting so highly addicted on, these oxycodones and pain medicines that they've been taking, and they've been finding medical marijuana has been more suitable in terms of with the pain, dealing with the pain, and less effective in terms of the side effects. But again, that's a fine line. You're talking about a THC level where it impair your thoughts, your thinking, and you can't have any professional athlete out there on that type of influence trying to perform and serve their organization.
All right, so now it is time to introduce today's guest, former NFL receiver Steve Smith. Smitty, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys?
We good, big fella.
Doing great.
All right, so our next segment is fan questions. Of course, we always ask everyone to use the hashtag 3OGs from the league. We have a lot of questions today. This one's for all three of you. We got to start off with this, of course. Who was the best trash talker you had to play against?
Smitty was one of the best. Who was one of those guys out there that always that brought the best out of you talking that trash? Because where we come from, it just gives us a little extra boost, especially when somebody over there talking about bring it and this and that. And I'm kind of keeping it clean in that regard. Yeah.
Honestly, I think to some degree, DBs really don't talk as much as TV makes it out to be. A lot of the linebackers, would talk because they were so active. DBs weren't really that talkative. As far as trash talking, anytime a guy makes a play, he's going to talk. That's just competitive sports. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing. I mean, you've seen, if you watch enough sports, any kind, you've seen tennis players get excited if they hit a good shot. So, I mean, there were times, obviously, I mean, Ray Lewis would talk, Lance Briggs, Brian Urlacher. A lot of linebackers are very chatty. They do a lot because I believe they do so much communication. But DBs weren't really, I'll say this, a lot of times there's this myth that I'm a trash talker in a sense of like, I'm just always talking. Like, one of the things that's really interesting that people really don't really notice, and if you go back and watch some of my stuff, yeah, I would talk to the camera, and that was more of just kind of doing what the league has really become, which is, the sideline mics. But a lot of times when I play and say the ball spinning and me talking a lot of times was not really deliberately at the DB. And there would be times where I remember a really close friend of mine, John Casey. And John Casey is a really good friend of mine because he taught me so much about life as a man, and on a Christian level, because I was born in LA, so I was a little bit rough around the edges, and there were just some things that now as a father, now as a husband, that I really did not. I wasn't taught. It wasn't something that was brought up. And so John really said some things to me and instilled some things to me that was a great deal. But he had told me one time, he said, you know, Steve, you keep spinning the ball on these players, and these players have to vote for you to go to the Pro Bowl. And I really took offense to that because, so basically what you're telling me is I can make these plays, I just can't make them feel bad. So if me spinning the ball makes them feel bad, he was like, they're not going to vote for you. So I kind of was like, well, with me catching the ball, like I love that because I was self-motivated. So me spinning the ball was kind of like, it was me rubbing it in their face without talking, right? And then the other thing was when I would catch a pass, you would always see me get hyped, but I would talk. But I wasn't talking to the DB. I was actually talking to myself about the situation. Like a great example is if I caught a pass and I would say literally out loud, and the DB happened to be there, and I was like, they really believe he can cover you today. And so I would yell that, like, he can't cover me. But I wasn't trying to really talk to him because even when I trained, so I had the same trainer for 8-10 years, and I always worked out by myself. I never worked out with the team. I had a signing bonus, I had a roster bonus, I had a workout bonus. I forego that a workout bonus for years. I did not collect it because I needed to train by myself, because at the end of it, when you're playing wide receiver and you're locked up against one of the best or a good or bad, whatever the opponent is on corner, your teammates that you work out with can't help you get off this jam on this slant when it's 3rd and 3 and everybody knows you're running a slant. So for me, everything I did was calculated my off-season regimen to where I was self-motivated. And I worked out to motivate myself. So I was on that island. And so when I played, I wasn't necessarily talking trash. I was talking about the situation. And the DB may have heard it, but it really wasn't about him. It was more about myself. And that was the interesting part. And people always, and that, yeah, I'm quick-witted and I like to joke. My mom is one of 13. So I grew up in a family where you had to carry your own. Between my mother, me being her child, and my 4 kids, and my 12 other aunts and uncles, there are 65 of us. And it's 65, and I can say it's 65 Black folks. And they just care. And a family that large, you joke, you razz on each other. You have to carry your own voice. And so from a very young age, I had to carry myself, and you had to pull your own weight, and, you know, closed mouths don't get fed, but also too, you can't be afraid to speak your mind. You know, my mom used to always tell me, hey, say how you feel. You may not like the result, you know, but say how you feel.
I know. What I can say is everybody can't talk it. I mean, everybody can talk it, but everybody can't walk it the way you walked it. I mean, I can tell from watching all the clips, and I saw a ton of them over the last few days. You were entertaining. I can tell that when you got in between the lines that everything came from your heart. You played the game with extreme passion. You know, and I've seen guys, you know, some guys, and I could see the motivation that you were bringing to yourself when you step out there on the field. Sort of like a Gary Payton in our league. You know, Gary had to have things to get him going, to get him motivated to play. But when you took it serious in between them lines, it wasn't like you was going in between. It wasn't no game. It was like life or death type situation when you got in between those lines. Because the way you went at people and the way you made catches and all that, and nothing was like pre-recorded what you was doing. It was all instinctual, the things that I saw you do in all the videos that I watched. You know, when you scored, you had different things when you got inside the end zone. You had different things that you said at the end of it. And like you said, none of them was directly pointed at them. It was pointed at your game and what you was doing. You were celebrating what you was doing and the hard work that you put in and how you did it. I could feel the passion just watching the videos. You know,
well, what's really interesting is, you know, Muggsy was on my podcast, Cut to It. But one of the things that I have discovered, I read this, it was around December 4th. And I read this and it really resonated with me. And it's something that I'm going into 2021 with. It said that I'm a unique person. I am well worth it. I am competent and lovable. And why that resonates with me is Muggsy knows how I think. Why that resonates with me most of anything is for a very long time, especially how we play sports and how people that sit on the couch identify and associate with certain players. Two words in there that really say something to me that were embedded in me at such a young age, that I was not competent and I was not lovable. And I think at times as athletes, one of the first things as a player, if you do something that people don't agree with, what's the first thing they associate us with? Being a thug. And then so that lets you know in there's this stigma of you're not competent. And if you hear that enough, you start to believe it. And then if you are in situations where you feel you're not lovable, then all of a sudden you don't want to go back to that situation, because ultimately those situations have built so much things in you that don't make you feel worth it. Mm-hmm. Don't make you feel lovable. So that's one of the things. And so I read that and I really see, for me, is the way I played is it wasn't a passion. I played with the fear of failure, because I knew if I had to go back to LA, back to the hood, and to show a lot of people at this 5'8", 5'9" wide receiver, tattooed, who messed up, he's done it again. He done screwed it up again. And so for me, that's why it wasn't passion. Man, it was all my 2 eggs in that huge basket. And hey, I know I'm lovable. I know I'm competent.
That's strong. That's so.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ash.
I was just going to say, we're going to do one more fan question. We have so many, but limited time. So I'll let you pick, Smitty. You can answer who was the toughest person you ever had to match up against, or are there any receivers playing today that remind you of yourself, and who?
I really hate that question about receivers. Is there anybody remind me of myself?
Because I know you do, but fans want to know.
But do you know why? Here's why I hate that question. Because people want to compare. Mm-hmm. And my desire, obviously, is to go in the Hall of Fame, whatever. A lot of players going to the Hall of Fame. I appreciate it. I hope so. Yeah. But when you go into those places, do you go in as that individual that you looked up to, or do you go in with your name? A lot of these players do want to be compared, but ultimately older players like myself, I don't want to compare myself to someone else, because I wore a particular number and I had my name, and my name meant something, and my children's name means something, that are named after me. So if I go in the Hall of Fame as Muggsy, then Muggsy goes, so it's going to be Muggsy, 4 Muggsies? No, you want to go in as your own name. Right. So there are players like Tyreek Hill. Nothing about him reminds me of myself. It reminds me of, damn, Tyreek Hill is a fantastic football player. Mm-hmm. No, he doesn't remind me of myself, because he does stuff that I can't do. And I believe I've done stuff he can't do. He's done something that I've never been able to do. So he's won a championship. But because he reminds me of myself, did we win a championship? And so that's why I really don't like that question. It has nothing to do with, it just has to do with, we all pick and choose our numbers and the names that represent us. And so we want that to be in the rafters, not, the same guy over and over, because then that's why college used to be what it was, where you had no name on the jersey. So that's really kind of why I say that I don't see any players like myself, because like DeAndre Hopkins, hell, I can't do nothing DeAndre was doing. Right? He catches the ball totally different. And I don't want to be considered, well, man, he reminds me of myself. No, he doesn't. Because if I'm being honest, he does some things that are way beyond my athletic ability. And kudos to him, you know?
But you know that's how fans are. They always try to compare small guys with small guys, you know. But they don't realize how they impact the game totally different. And Steve just hit it on it so brilliantly in terms of the comparison with Tyreek Hill and with him. Totally different. I mean, totally different type of
I
skill
blow
set.
out all my hamstrings trying to run as fast as that boy.
But they throw that thing up in the air for 5'8", 5'9" to go get it.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's like Michael Jordan going to get it.
Everybody's unique in their own way.
It's a space and the way we impact it.
I agree. Everybody unique. You don't see people do the same thing. Comparisons are crazy. They talk about the Kobe, LeBron. No comparisons with these guys, with Michael, and they all unique in their own way, and they all gonna make their own legacy. They all gonna do their own thing. I mean, some of the things you did out on the football field. I mean, at your size, it's a different type of talent. The Randy Mosses and Michael Irvins and those type of guys, it's totally different body types, totally different.
Yeah.
You had a unique way you played the game. I mean, things that you could catch the ball from any angle, anywhere, over your shoulders, spinning around, eluding, stiff arming. I mean, the whole nine. Some of the stuff I saw you do was just incredible on the football field. It's not going to be another Steve Smith. As simple as that. There's no comparisons, because I don't think there'll ever be another guy like you.
Well, I hope not, because then if it is, people always say, man, if we had, 22 guys like you, and I always used to say no. Because then I would be out of a job.
No, it's only gonna be one. Only gonna be one. No, you did some incredible things, and the list is so long. I watched so much stuff over the last few days. I'm like, geez, it's incredible. I mean, I was hyped just looking at it. It's like unreal the way you played the game. So yeah, I agree with you 100% on that, though. There's no comparisons.
Well, while we have you, we'll skip rapid fire. We'll do that at the end, but I know we each have some questions, and we'll just kind of continue this conversation that the fans started for us. We all know you as one of the Panther greats, and I'm sure there's a lot of moments that mean a lot to you from being with the organization. Is there one that's at the top of the list for you, or how do you kind of rank your moments playing for Carolina?
I think now, as I go back, I'm very appreciative, but then there is some parts where I kind of try to block them out a little bit, because I don't want to be the guy who can't settle down into retirement and allow that place to be where it is. And the reason I say that is, I work for NFL Network, and so I have an opportunity. I have a lot of different accounts and apps I'm able to look at games and designs and situations. And so I found myself literally last Sunday, I was looking up some old film to kind of analyze the Baltimore Ravens and Greg Roman, and how he has kind of run this same offense with different quarterbacks, but it's pretty much the same type of offense that he's been doing for 8+ years. And one of the technologies I have, I can go back up to 2008, and I caught myself, and I had my little mouse, and I'm going, and I got my Surface Pro, and I'm going through it, and I'm looking. I said, and it said 2008, and I was like, And so I caught myself going to the Carolina Panthers, because I had to go to the Baltimore Ravens, and it's in alphabetical order. Atlanta, Arizona, Atlanta, and then Baltimore, right underneath the Browns, and then you start to see the Carolina. And I said, I clicked, and then I shut it off, and I said, and I had a little conversation with myself, like, why? And the kids were coming in, and I usually watch the games on my little screen-in porch, and because I could just watch all these games and write my notes and kind of just have my stuff spread out. And I stopped myself, like, don't be that guy who's watching old clips of himself. Like, man, I should have did this. And so I stopped myself. And it's really, and I think the question is great, is because honestly, there are, for 13 years I played in Carolina, there were some roller coasters. There were some highs and some lows. And I heard a guy say this, when you're at the top of the mountain, they're excellent. But when you're in the trough, it makes you appreciate when you come out and get halfway up the mountain. And so I was in the trough a little bit with the Carolina Panthers, how we started, 1-15, but also learned a lot in that. And I learned from some very unique and awesome men that taught me some things that I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for some of those men. So I the one thing that I miss is, and I try to pay it back, is all the guys that I played with, especially the old heads that my first year, because they were like Jimmy Hitchcock, Damian Richardson, Carl Hankton, Dean Wells, Jason Kyle, Brad Hoover, Sean Gilbert, Mike Minner, Doug Evans, those players and many more. Those players taught me a lot. Corey Minor taught me a lot. And so when I get the opportunity, and I try to thank them, because I wouldn't be in the league as long as I experienced, and I wouldn't be the man I am today without some of those guys building some quality things in me, even though I didn't listen to them. And so some of those guys, Mike Minner, I've thanked them, Mike Rucker as well, Brinson Buckner. And I had lunch with, about 2 years after I was done, I think, with John Casey. And I thanked them because John really loved in me on the finances. And he taught me a lot about finances, to where it led me to take a 2-year internship with Morgan Stanley, to where he saved me. Not necessarily I was dumb. I was the true essence of ignorance. I lacked knowledge on how to manage money. And so he saved me on that. And so that was one of the cool things, that a lot of these old heads, when I was on that team, the 2001 team, we weren't very good, but we had a lot of men of character. And without those men of character, you wouldn't be talking to me today.
And you mentioned a lot of them, and I know quite a few of them. And they were some amazing men around in this community, because I've been here for quite some time, and Mike Minner and Ruckers and all those guys have really done an amazing job for this community and for the organization while they was here. And they meant a lot for the city. And, going through that process, I know you mentioned about the 2001, but you did get a taste of that big dance, in Houston. And I, me and my boy, I was there in the stands watching you guys, and I'm thinking that this was going to be our year. This was going to be the one. And boy, here it is. I'm sitting there, fourth and 26 or something like this, 16 or something. I'm thinking, oh man, they going for it? What? You got to be kidding that they going to go for it. We're going to get the ball and we're going to just go do our thing. And man, they got that first down, and I was just going crazy. And I don't know, we wound up losing the game like 32-29. And it was heartbreaking for me, but I can't imagine what it was for you guys. What was going through your mind during that?
It was tough. We had we didn't realize it at that time. We had such key players. We thought the next year we'll bounce back. And the next year, some of those guys left because teams want to be associated with winners. And so we had guys that moved on because teams they were free agents, and other teams said, hey, these guys understand. That's why a lot of teams that go deep in the playoffs, when they become free agents, teams go grab those guys, because they understand what a winning culture looks like. They understand how to handle the peaks and the troughs of football. And so because of that, you want to coaches can only coach so long. You have to have peer-to-peer. And so that's why they bring in players like that. And so we lost some guys, Deion Grant, Hannibal Navies, right? So we lost a lot of players because they went on and they got handpicked to go to other places. And rightfully so, because those guys were exceptional leaders. They knew exactly how to win. They knew how to steadfast through adversity. And so I thought, we thought we were going to come back, and, lo and behold, it just didn't work out that way. However, we still had success after that, and then we built it back up.
Right.
A couple of years later, but that's just how that's the parity, and that's how football goes. Sometimes you got to be at the right place at the right time and catch the right pass, or get the right block.
That's
Earl, what you got?
No, I mean, I'm listening. I'm taking all this in right now. I know.
I'm
listening. I'm listening to. I like his take on a lot of different things. It's a little different the way he's explaining things, but it's clear the way you do it. I mean, the window will close on you with championships. The organization seem like they would be the people, if you get something to come that close, they would not let anybody get away. You try to bring it back together. I played on a Philadelphia team that just had to persevere over the years, losing, in the Eastern Conference Finals, being up 3-1. But, we came back, strengthening the roster, getting it better for the next year, then going to the finals and losing to the Lakers in 6. Then, making an acquisition over the summer to bring in a Moses Malone, and he comes in with Doc, and then all of a sudden, boom, we take it and win the championship. So sometimes it takes time, and ownership's got to know that. They got to be willing to keep those guys together and know when they got something special to give you an opportunity to reach that goal. Because it's hard to put together a team and get the right chemistry and get the right people there that going to help you win championships. So I understand exactly what you're talking about, but the way you explaining things, even when you had a bad season, you got knowledge out of everything. So you got to go through the ups and downs, throughout the league. Yeah, I played with some of the worst teams in the league, the Clippers one year that won 17 games, back in LA. Then I played with a team that, that won 67 games, so you see both sides of the coin, and out of each one of them you learn and you get something out of it. And I think you took something from everybody, which is, is a credit to you. That's what's going to make you stronger and help you succeed. And obviously, and you doing a great job with the broadcast as well. I like the way you break things down. It's obviously you extremely knowledgeable of what you're talking about. You're not on the air just talking, you explaining it. I looked at some of those clips and saw that, and just saw a whole lot of interesting things about you, so it's good to sit back. I want to just listen and just hear now, all the good stuff you're talking about. So
I think TV has really, a good friend of mine when I was in Baltimore, Torrey Smith, he would always get on me because for me, I would take the shortcut. He can't play. And so when I was a Baltimore Raven, we had to line up and play against the Carolina Panthers. And so my wide receivers coach, who I was a former player and a guy that I'm still good friends with and admire, was Bobby Ingram. And he's coaching the tight ends right now, hence why the tight ends are doing so well for the Baltimore Ravens. He goes, Steve, you got the floor. This is your team. You know them like the back of your hand. So go ahead. And right before I started, Torrey says, now, don't go there and do that this guy sucks. He says, tell me why. Tell me why he is good or he is not good. Don't be Smitty. Stop being lazy. And he looked at me and I'm like, what do you mean I'm being lazy? He said, you know what I'm talking about. Stop being lazy and go down, run down every single guy, because I know you study. I see you studying. And so it was a real good challenge, because there were times where I'm just like, that dude can't play. And I would say, why? Oh, he's not very good. And he'll be like, well, why isn't he very good? And I go, well, here's the reasons why. Bang, 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 bang. And he said, okay, well, why can't you do that? And so when we played the Carolina Panthers, he had me go down and tell them why this kid or this young man or this man can play, why he couldn't play, what schemes they run, why is the defense coordinator running this? And so it really helped me go, you know what, he was right. And so I started taking that approach. And it really helped me in broadcasting, because there are some coworkers, there's some folks I work with where they do talk, but then they don't want to really talk about ball. And for me, I am very much, I'm an overthinker. I look at every angle. And so for me, it really helped me. So I'm always looking at how, what, when, where, and why. Why is this team good? Why did they lose? Why did they win? What makes them good? What makes them bad? And I try to articulate that. And I kind of look at it as an angle of, yes, this team is excellent, but why didn't they get the first down? And so that's how I look at it. Now I have to work on, why is this team good? Because I also believed in, if you don't know your weaknesses, then you're just going to hang up on your strengths, and that ain't going to work.
No.
Because your scouting department knows your weakness. They don't give you a scouting report and says, hey, be wary of this guy. He can beat you. They go, he's good. However, here's his cons. Here's are the things that he does not do well.
Mm-hmm. And that's the scouting, and that's the breaking down and analyzing. Mm-hmm. And that's a guy that plays the game and who's able to go on TV to articulate it and break it down. I think it gives them that inside, I would say that little inside thing in terms of knowing exactly what to look for, as a basketball player. For me, as a point guard, I can see the whole game and analyze it and give you why this player is not as good, the reason why, and break it down to you. And that's the thing that you do so brilliantly, as Earl mentioned. You give them the reason why, and that's what makes the analysts as good as they are.
Well, one of my first memories, I was an intern. It was my first locker room, Carolina Panthers. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I left my other job early. We're waiting for you to come to your locker. You finally get there. You're like, nah, I'm not talking to y'all today. So I kind of love that you're one of us now, that, I'm like, okay, now he's on both sides of it.
Well, I had a love-hate because I really didn't like, understanding. I didn't understand as a player. I do understand it now, but I still think it's laziness on the media's part, which is, you have to describe everything. Like, it said, well, you have to explain it like your 80-year-old grandmother is reading an article. And I think that is crock, because that generally means I'm going to really paint the picture of your past to benefit the narrative of the story. And I call that low-hanging fruit. Right. And I really look at articles now and I see it and I say, it's such low-hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. Because they will associate someone else's mistake that wasn't even on that team just to emphasize the seriousness of the situation. Right. Like, you go to the Charlotte Observer today, or you go on anywhere about a player that was with a team that happened to play the Carolina Panthers around in October, and then they associate someone else by it. And those two individuals didn't go to the same school. They didn't even play on the same two teams, but we're putting that story in there. Why? Because it helps emphasize the severity of the allegation. I don't get that.
Right. Well, not every journalist does that. Let me just say. So
not everyone, but I also know, having a segment producer and a producer,
right?
Bosses, I understand that it has to look a certain way, and for me, I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Right. I'm not, because and that's my biggest thing, right? I cannot go on the air and do something I don't believe in. I just can't do it. Someone else has to do that story. It's not who I am. So
and I'll sit on air and do this. Like, talk. I said, I told y'all in the production meeting I wasn't talking. You thought I was gonna change because this red light is on? I'll be in a red light like this. I told one time, I said, when y'all finish this segment, let me know. So they'll take me off segment. They're like, how you feel about this segment? I'm like, because also I've been a player and I don't want to be a guy that's trashing someone as if I've forgotten. But if you're a fantastic player and you do a bonehead move, I do say, hey, I expect better from a guy like that. Because I also know that individual. I know that that's uncharacteristic of him, but we still got to talk about it.
Call it like you see it.
Yeah. And sometimes there are some people like, oh, with Smitty's past, I can't respect him. Why? Because something I did 10 years ago, you're still holding on to it. Well, that's something you need to figure out there.
Right.
That don't have anything to do with what that guy's doing currently right now in the present. I didn't do that. I may have did something worse or not as bad, but you're trying to discredit me.
Well, they always trying to bring something together here or there and put it to a piece to fit that narrative.
Only narrative doesn't fit though, they forget. And it's coming on Friday, that director podcast. don't take it here to that.
Well, we've got one more segment, rapid fire, but
all right, let's
you guys
go.
have anything else for Smitty about him or his playing career or what?
Well, I want to just say the most ultimate compliment you can get is from your teammates. And I saw that locker room segment before you went back and played the Panthers, and they interviewed all those guys before the game, and all of them was saying just about the same thing. Well, you know what he's going to bring to the table. You know what he brought to practice every day here. You know what his approach to a game going to be. So we pretty much expect the same where he's at right now. He's doing it. He did it all while he was here. He set the example. He's going to be ready. And all of them pretty much said the same. And you could see that they was worried about it. But yet they was giving you your respect of what you did over the years that you played with those guys. And I like that segment when I saw that, because those guys right there, it wasn't no smiles, wasn't no laughs. They was trying to get themselves prepared, because they knew that it was coming into the building and they had to be ready for it. So
it was one of those things like, I don't care is it older cousin or younger cousin. It's one of those, it's all family, it's all respect. But when you're on the other side of that locker room, on the other side of the field, just because we got the same auntie don't mean you're going to get treated nice.
Well, they realized that. They knew that. Yeah.
Well, it all kind of came full circle for you last season, right? You were back on the field. You now got your name up in the stands. What was that like for you to kind of see it all come back to that moment?
Honestly, it was surreal, and more than anything, there were still a lot of underlining things that were going on, and it had nothing to do with really, like, I understand, people get fired, all the time, or people get laid off. But one of the things that really rubbed me the wrong way wasn't necessarily I got fired. It was the fact that there were some people in that building that we had went to kids' events, birthday parties and graduations, and it was such a family atmosphere. They saw my kids. My oldest son was a ball boy there for many years. And so they knew my family. And when things were going down, some of those people, not everyone, some of those people went dark on me. And to me, I'm a very loyal person. I'm not loyal to brands. I'm loyal to people. And so when that happened, I took it personal because I understand the business aspect, but there were times where, your individuals were graduating, or it was Christmas time and your son was a ball boy of mine, and I gave X amount of dollars to make sure that all the ball boys were taken care of, and told other guys, like, no, you're going to tip these ball boys because these ball boys are picking up your jocks and your socks after games. And so that was one of the things. But then also too, when the transition of Mr. Richardson, who I had a great relationship with, with Big Cat, still do, we email still to this day. He congratulated my son, my oldest boy, who graduated from Wofford this June. But Mr. Tepper really went out his way to learn who I was. And me and Mr. Tepper actually had dinner. When he came, he said, "Man, I want to meet with you." I'm like, "For what? About what?" He was like, let's just meet. I said, "All right, you really want to meet me?" I said, "Okay, I'm coming from Outlaw. I got to do the games on Sunday. I come in about 5:30, and I kind of joked with him. I was like, "Hey, when you take this L, let's go have dinner." Right? And he didn't really like that, but he was like, "They warned me. They say you're a straight shooter." And so we went down to a restaurant that I picked, and I had it in a nice little room. So just me and him, and we watched the games, and we talked about a lot of things. But here's what was really interesting is when the bill came, I said, "I got it." He was like, why? I said, because I don't want you to think I want anything from you. I want you to understand, I know how much money you have, but I don't want you to think that I'm seeking something out of you. And ever since then, man, we talk all the time, me and Mr. Tepper. And we joke around. When I was in Miami, the last Super Bowl, he has a spot down there off Miami. And our thing, he got on a bike and rode down and said hello to me. And I just thought that was awesome. And so my relationship with the Carolina Panthers just really has been rebuilt on Mr. Tepper, also Marty Herney. When he got the job, Marty, I was the first person he called. He said, you ever need anything, you ever want anything, just call me. And I said, I won't. And it's been that relationship that I just don't want to be one of those guys that comes around when it's beneficial or it feels like, well, he's around us because we're winning or he wants something out of it. Because I know how people treat athletes and how they take. And it's such transactional relationships. And so, and with that, why I was able to be in a Hall of Honor, and they asked me, they kind of were, it was about 4 or 5 months. And I guess my family was involved. My wife, one of my best friends, Gerard Littlejohn, who's part of my executive director for my foundation. They were trying to get some folks, and they were like, hey, we're going to announce this, and we want Steve to be a part of it. And they were like, we're going to come up to the house. And my folks, my wife and my boy, they were like, you don't roll up on Smitty at his house now. Hey, don't do that. They don't want them surprises because you'll get a surprise. And so when they talked to me, the first thing I said is, yes, I'll accept the Hall of Honor. And they said, what? And he asked me, well, why? I said, because I'll be a hypocrite to my kids if I don't show that I can forgive. And I also feel like to my Lord and Savior, I would be a hypocrite, and he'll hold me to a standard in which I would always fall short. So for me, doing it was more of a closing the door, but also open up a door. It was for my family. And not saying it wasn't for me, but it was for my family to be an example of, if I could just say it, I'm going to say it how I want to, bro, let it go. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it was. And so by letting it go, I also don't want to be associated with just two teams, with the Carolina Panthers or the Baltimore Ravens. I want to be associated as a darn good analyst that looks at football objectively, and he's going to tell it like it is, no matter who's playing. And that's why I don't really try to do too much with two teams, because I also don't want to be considered a homer.
I think that's beautiful. I didn't know all of that. I was there when it happened, and I had no idea that much went into it. So
yeah, it was I think it was like a 6 or 7 month process just with me, because they knew it was such a delicate place because of how things went down, and also, it's not even I hold grudges. It's just one of those things where it's like, if you do me wrong, I'm like, I'm good. Like, I don't want to say I don't need it, but I kind of compartmentalize where it's like, man, that's gone and past. Move on.
Mm-hmm. But that's a sign of your growth, though. Yep. As really the testament of your growth. And as you just made it, as you alluded to, set an example for the family, setting that example for your kids. And you just mentioned that I want to, make sure we don't lose sight of this. You just touched on a little bit about the foundation, about the Steve Fitz Family Foundation. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because I know you've been not only just in Charlotte, you've been able to spread your wings, throughout wherever you are. And I'm quite sure it's been very beneficial for the people that you've been targeting.
Well, I mean, Charlotte, we have right there on Central Avenue, we're up to almost 6,000 patients. Now we have a medical clinic in Charlotte that we serve the community on Central Avenue. I like to always say we serve the folks that when prior to COVID, they were parking and working in the concession stands. We serve the people on the other side of the stadium, that we all pass in the summers to go on our third world country missions trips. We pass those folks. And so that's where our clinic is. We serve that community. It's an awesome community. We do in August, we do free immunization shots, checkups. We do dentists. We also do free counseling. We also do checkups. We're partnered with Novant and in the process of building a bigger facility as well to continue to keep serving. But then we also now we started a virtual academy for the kids that are Mecklenburg. So here's the thing with Mecklenburg. Mecklenburg has 5,000 that they know of that are registered, that they have documentation that are considered homeless. And homeless means they have a barrier to stop them from learning, whether they don't have permanent residence, they're living in a car, they're living with a family member, they're living in a hotel, motel. They're living in a place that they don't call home. It's 5,000, and the Mecklenburg receives fund. It's called the McKinley-Vento Act and Law, and they receive funding. They receive cash as Charlotte T now lives here. Randy Moss, straight cash, homie. They receive straight cash for that. And so when the pandemic hit, we had kids that were not able to have adequate Wi-Fi, and they couldn't learn. And there's a summer slump that when kids who are behind or below the poverty level, when they go into summer, they've calculated they lose in those 2 to 3 months almost 6 months of learning. They digress 6 months. So imagine this pandemic 9 months. So they're digressed almost a full year and a half. So we did the virtual learning center. We were only able to social distance and also receive funding for almost about 108 kids. Now, there's a lot of other organizations that are doing the same thing. But one of the things that was really triggering for me is the next Steve Smith, the next Michael Jordan are in those 5,000 kids. And if they can't read or write, then that means they can't go to college. And if they can't go to college, they're in a rat race. And we all know what it looks like to be in a rat race and what we refer to if it gets too hard and what they do. And it becomes the fast money, the easy cash life. And that's why our prison systems are overpopulated with all kind of folk. And so we've done that. And so what we're doing now is as things progress, we're going to do an enrichment after school program that really only targets the same homeless population. And one of our mission statement is reading and math transforms lives. And that's what we're going to do. And we're really excited about it because we're transitioning into something that we know is sustainable. And we're feeding these kids. We're clothing them. We received a ton of their parents actually had a unique opportunity. Is we had a Amazon wish list and people bought on the wish list. And the cool part of honoring the families, the moms and dads of these children, their moms and dads got to wrap their own kids' Christmas gifts for them that they're going to get in a couple of days for Christmas. And I really love that because these parents were boohooing and crying because their kids are finally being served in a way that's extremely important. And then obviously because of my mom, she's a survivor of domestic violence. I understand the statistics of men who witnessed their parents. The guy that abused my mom was not my father. So I just know how it impacts young men, how it impacts women. So we try to really rewrite and reprogram. And just like what I said, make them feel what? Competent and lovable.
And that's awesome. I mean, and that's what we need, man. And that's what we need more. You strengthening families. and that's basically what we got to continue to do. And I just wanted to, give you that opportunity to share
Appreciate
that
it.
because it's really very important, the thing that everybody's out here doing, and to be able to continue to wrap your arms around those families, from the kids to the parents, all the way through to empower them. That's special, my brother. I appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I taught high school math for 4 years before I did a 180 in my life. But I always say I wish everybody could be in the classroom or be a teacher for like a week and just see what these kids go through. Because it's not just about them showing up and passing your class. Like they're, like you mentioned, like everything that you're doing for the group that you're serving through your foundation. Kids are going through so much and people don't realize it. And it breaks my heart. And so I'm thankful that you're doing that, especially here in the Charlotte community to serve that group of kids that really need it.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, before Wifey says it's time to go, shall we do rapid fire real quick?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Rapid.
Right.
Rapid and fire.
All right. First thing that comes to mind when you hear these names or teams.
Ooh.
All right. Now, Lamar Jackson.
Man.
That was something special. I wasn't, that was something spectacular I seen the other day. He said he didn't pull the Paul Pierce, so I'm a believer.
Yeah.
So I just gotta say, waiting to see what he's gonna do, waiting to see what's gonna happen. Is he gonna be the real deal or what? You're waiting to see.
He's a must see though.
Yeah, dynamic. He's dynamic.
All right. What about Patrick Mahomes?
Versatile.
That boy just bad. He's just a bad man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard with bad man. He's spectacular. I mean, he is. I tell you. Yeah.
All right. Switching it up. What about when you hear the name Jay-Z?
99 problems, but ain't one.
Hey, best rapper alive.
Jigga, yeah. I tell you, he's one of my top two for sure.
I said the best one alive right now.
All right. What about Kevin Hart?
He's funny, of course, but I shouldn't let him wear my damn number at All-Star during the All-Star break.
Energy.
Yeah.
That's what come to mind. Non-stop, energized.
Energized bunny.
For me, it's creative. Super creative.
Yeah.
How about John Stockton?
Man.
Shoot, one game shy of Muggsy Bogues on the double nut turnover list.
I tell you, Jay Stock, man, he was so he was so underrated from my eyes. I'll say underrated because he was definitely one of the top point guards of our time.
I went to Utah, so meeting him and Karl Malone, just a dream come true for me because I had two jerseys in basketball and the rest of my jerseys were football, but Muggsy was one of them, and John Stockton was the other guy, and as funny as that's crazy. So I go to college, University of Utah, and then I live in Charlotte, and the two basketball guys.
Yeah. Stockton came out of nowhere too. It's like it was hard to kind of grasp what he was doing because Gonzaga, and then all of a sudden it took you time to believe what he really was. But at the end of the day, he was the real deal. No question about it.
Look, I mean, for us, you see a little white boy playing ball. You're not like you're gonna come at, but Stockton, he wasn't quick, but he was he had that deceptional quickness. But the IQ level was off the charts.
Incredible.
Off the charts.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we can wrap it up. Guys, you have some final thoughts you want to share about today's podcast?
Well, all right. It was great. It was good. I'm sorry that my big fella was having them technical difficulties. He wasn't able to join us. I can't wait to hear what all happened.
Ogo killed me. He gonna call me all kind of names.
He working with the flicks, not the name.
He got a lot to say about all that, right?
Oh, he does.
He's so mad right now.
Oh, he wanted to jump in on all of this.
This was great, man. It was a pleasure getting an opportunity to be on here with you, man, and get a chance to, to meet you, on the Zoom call. I'd like to see you in person one day, but I enjoyed doing the research, and all the things I saw. I had a bunch of other questions that I saw. The Taco Bell story, put the nail in the coffin to cut my grass when y'all get back to Charlotte. I saw all that good stuff. So
I didn't get no HOA calls. So they can't be tight.
Y'all get back to Charlotte. Make sure you cut my grass.
I got in trouble for that comment too.
Yeah.
She was like, you gotta win with that wasn't a good example. I'm like, after the game, I'm like, I don't really care.
Had to give them something. You gave them something. A little something.
They understood. Yeah, I appreciate you taking time out again.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
Oh, anytime. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, that was great, Smitty. It was great to see you, even if it was virtually. Again, like Earl said, hopefully we'll all be together in real life sooner than later.
Yeah. Yep.